Bum Podcast.
Bum Podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me. Live and in color.
Live and in color, for real, for real.
So, how you doing, sir?
I'm awesome, outstanding, all that good stuff.
That's great to hear. So, what we talking about today?
Relationships.
Relationships.
Yeah.
What kind of relationships?
I don't know. Symbiotic?
Symbiotic relationships.
That'd be funny. So, for the listening audience, T's home. Yay.
Came home for Thanksgiving.
Yes, he did. I had some claps or something like that.
Some applause.
Yeah, some applause. I don't know where it is. But I love to hear my applause. Did it do it?
I don't know.
All right, well, anyway.
We tried. If you heard it, you did.
Oh, yeah, well, there we go. There we go. Let's try it again. No applause? Well, I was trying for the applause. But anyway, T's on for Thanksgiving. And so we decided that we would do this podcast together again.
Mm-hmm. Like we used to do it.
Like we used to do it in the beginning. Been well over a year and a half, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've been doing these things kind of virtual. And, well, I guess, is this virtual, I guess? Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all right,
it's virtual.
Okay, cool. So now we're doing it together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting here looking at him.
I'm looking at him.
Getting sick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I am.
But one of the things that I told him I want to talk about it because fortunately for T and I, we have a pretty decent relationship.
I agree.
And so I want to just explore how it evolved, how it started, how it evolved, how we feel about it. Just, I guess, provide some insight because I think the relationship that we have hasn't always been, I don't think it's ever been bad. It's been tested. But I think it's something that a lot of people would aspire to. And so that's why I wanted to discuss it.
Okay.
All right, cool. I guess let me not start.
Sure. What you gotta say?
I just said what I had to say.
Well, I can start then.
All right.
So I'll say for me, I don't know, it's all just been normal for me because it was all I had really known. Growing up, the type of relationship we had, I'll say when I got off to school, probably is when I realized that everybody had so many different parent dynamics and family dynamics that the relationship that I have with you and even with mother as well isn't it something that's like guaranteed or necessarily the expectation. And so I would say as far as that's been, even just going out and seeing that, I think led to our relationship developing even more as well. Because I say it's definitely been something that's changed as I've aged, as you've aged, and as I've, well, really both of us, as we've gone through different periods of life and different phases of life, the relationship has kind of changed to reflect that in a way. And it's, I don't know, I feel we're in a pretty good place right now.
Yeah, I think we are. And it's interesting because one of the things that I guess when I say we were tested before, and this was before you went off to college, I guess more or less dealing in high school, and I guess your realization in college kind of, I guess, assisted with this because it seems like when you were in high school, I don't think middle school particularly, but really in high school, a lot of your cohort, your compadres, your contemporaries, they didn't have the best relationships with their parents, or at least they didn't think they had the best relationships with their parents, and it was almost like it was an expected thing. Like at this point in my life, I'm not supposed to have a good relationship with my parent. And it was almost like it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I remember your mom and I talking about it and just like, I mean, dog, I don't know why he acting that way because we ain't like them. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We not like the relationship that they describing. And so it was that was the only time I think it was really kind of testy. But it gives a testament to what you're saying now when you got off to college and understanding that, hey, what we had was, I guess that's special. You didn't say special, but I guess special. I mean, it wasn't something that was an expectation because everybody's parents and them didn't have that type of relationship.
Which it's interesting that you say that because I don't really have a not to say I don't have a memory of how high school was, but in my head I don't remember high school being such a different time.
I bet you don't.
Um, I do remember college being different when I went off to school, but that's just because if anything, it was more of like a lack thereof
Hmm.
because there was almost an element of like radio silence on my part because I was really just very self-contained within probably especially like the first 2 years
I say self-absorbed, not self-contained.
self-absorbed.
Yeah,
I mean, sure,
yeah, there's a difference.
but yeah, the first 2 years I was really all like everything that was happening in my life was what was going on right in front of me and in the area that I was within. And I think after coming home for during the pandemic with the quarantine and all that,
Hmm.
and then going back off to school again, um, almost like it was a natural reset for the relationship because we found a way to be able to coexist when we were staying together again.
Right.
And then it allowed it to naturally extend into when I left again. And then it began to grow as I was growing to a I don't know, more of a I don't know, not more open communication, but more consistent communication, I would say at the very least. And I know me in general as a person, I've just become more open to talking about things and asking questions and trying to figure out things about life as I've been going through life and been feeling like I need to figure stuff out, right? And so I think because of that, it's opened up the line of communication more.
It's interesting. I want to unpack a whole bunch of what you just talked about. But the first thing I'll do, I want to give a real shout out to Troy Brown, man, because having a conversation with him, and even having that conversation with him as I came to pick you up from college for COVID, it was like that was his thing, man. It was like he need to come home and reset. And if you've been out, if you've been listening to our podcast, or you know anything about T and I, we had this whole get out date um, book mentality, everything. And it was like once he was gone, he was gone. And so COVID presented us with a unique challenge of T having to come back home. And I was okay with him coming back home. I was never resistant for him to come back home, but I mean, we never knew it was going to be as long as it was because we was thinking it was going to be a week or 2 weeks, and then he was going to be gone.
It
But
went from a few weeks to about a year and a half.
yeah, about a year and a half, real talk. And so I remember Troy Brown telling me, he was like, when I was on my way down to pick you up, he's like, man, they're gonna be the best thing for him. He get to come home, get to do a reset. You'll see, you'll see. And I'm like, man, whatever you say, but I ain't feeling it right now. Because like you said, I mean, you were really self-absorbed your freshman year.
That's not what I said. That's what you said.
I know you
I
said
said
self-contained.
self-contained.
That's what you said, but that ain't what it was. It was self-absorbed. Your world was all about what you had in front of you, is what you said, and that's what it was. You didn't consider things outside of what was in your immediate vicinity. But it's cool. It's
And I
cool.
think it was interesting because you brought up the Get Out Day, right? And I think even part of that probably played a role in it because all I knew as far as like growing up, like I knew about the Get Out Day. The Get Out
Yes,
Day
you
is
did.
when I was off, I was out, I was in the world. And so I didn't really know what the dynamic looked like past, all right, it's the Get Out Day, I'm out.
Right.
And I think coming home and really, for one, the coming home kind of established like, oh, the relationship can still continue.
Hmm.
And then I think after I left home after the pandemic, and I started like having to handle stuff in my own life, and that allowed the dynamic of all right, the relationship is continuing. That allowed it to kind of blossom into something new, as far as which you often you bring up when you have these type of conversations of that relationship dynamic changes from it's not always over like looking over you parenting type of
Hmm.
thing, and it became more of a coaching and open communication, just talk stuff out.
Right.
What are you thinking? What am I thinking? All right, what are we trying to get to type thing.
Which is interesting. Even when we talk about discipline from time to time, it's like that's what you always want to get to. I mean, you're actually trying to get to that point where you're not. I mean, and it's still parenting. It has to be considered parenting
Right.
because I'm a parent, but it's the dynamic of what parenting looks like changes. Because ultimately, um, when you were in my house, I had to make sure that what you did, the consequences that you suffered, didn't weren't critical enough to bring the family down. And so that was a different type of parenting. When you're out on your own, it's making sure that the consequences that you suffer, you understand what they are because they affect you. They don't affect me. And so it becomes a different dynamic. I can't tell you what to do. I just need to impress upon you the importance of looking and seeing and filling out what your immediate consequences are to every action that you take, so that you'll understand when the consequence comes, um, it's your consequence, and you set that consequence up. And so, I mean, so getting to a point where, as a parent, and this is the tricky part, as a parent, um, getting you to see that that's what I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
was important, because as long as you felt like what I was doing was trying to manipulate you or trying to tell you what to do, you'd be resistant to it. And so that's not what I wanted at all. I just wanted you to be to a place where you processed what happened. And I'm gonna give you a really good example. A really good example is with the earrings, right? And so instead
Yeah, that
of
was probably a big moment.
really for you,
It was a big moment for me.
really, why is that?
So for me, because I remember the only memory I had of, well, not the only memory, but a memory that I had in my mind was when I was younger. You told me if I came in with earrings, you would rip them out my ear.
Okay.
I remember that. But fast forward to I was in school and I had thought about it, and I actually thought about it for some years before I did it. And I remember I actually had a conversation with you about it. I think it might have been my freshman year. I think it was my freshman year. No, it was probably it was either the end of my freshman year, beginning of my sophomore year. But I was talking to you about it, and the conversation that we had, you were more so like, well, make sure, like, what outcome are you looking for? And
Mm.
will that outcome be worth the changing of these other things, this other dynamic? And so I remember having that conversation. And so fast forward, I got my earrings my senior year, and it wasn't necessarily spur of the moment because I had thought about it for a minute, and then I decided to do it. But I hadn't been like prepped anybody for the fact that I was about to do it.
Mm.
So I didn't know what the reaction was gonna be. Um, and it's funny because now that I think about it, I don't exactly remember what the reaction was. What was your reaction? I
Oh,
don't remember what your outward reaction was.
so
I just remember it was calm.
it was calm because you set me up big time. So for the record, I was always against the earring, not because I was against the earring, but because it was a microcosm of a decision that needed to be made. And so one thing, and this could go all the way back to your childhood. Like, I never wanted you to be a follower. I didn't raise you to follow trends. I didn't raise you to do what everybody else did. Like, I mean, even down to Barney. Like, we didn't watch Barney in our house because Barney seemed to be the obsession of every child. And so I didn't want you to get caught up in the whole Barney thing. And so we didn't even watch Barney in the house. And it was not that I had anything against Barney. I had everything against the cult following of Barney.
Right.
And so what I tried to do for you was in raising you and being intentional about raising you was to keep you away from the cult following of everything. And so one of the things I know about young men and earrings and even young women earrings, this just happened earlier for young women. It almost seems like to be a rite of passage for people when it really is not what it is. That, I mean, it may be for young ladies. I can't tell you what about young ladies, but for men, it seems like to be like this rite of passage because once I get them, I become this thing. And I didn't want that for you. And so that's why every time you bring it up, I would say something. And I remember vividly, we was in San Diego, California. I remember right before your 15th birthday.
Okay. I don't remember this.
I know you don't, because I didn't have this conversation with you, but I remember it. Like it was yesterday. It was right before your 15th birthday. It was in San Diego. We were staying in the Hampton Inn, right across from the river. I mean, I'm from the ocean, and I saw a kid with earrings in his ear, and it made me think about all the kids that I'd seen that were in your circle that had earrings that was so immature and so disrespectful, and so the list goes on, and thinking about the fact that these kids aren't even mature enough to make correct decisions yet. They got, they make life altering changes to themselves, and it was a vivid memory for me, and so that didn't help, but. When you approached me at 21, approaching your 21st birthday, the reason why I say you set me up was because when you said to me you needed to talk to me, the way you said it, I was expecting the words.
I do remember that. That is how it went. Because you were like, it could have been so many things. I didn't know if you got somebody pregnant. I didn't know
what it was, man. I didn't know what it was. It was like you set me up so strong because I mean, it was like you was leaving church and you was like, I had a good time at church, but I need to talk to you. And I'm like, is this dude about to lead a church? He don't believe in God no more? What is going on? And so
that was your response, because I remember I told you, like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that was how I felt. So when you told me what it was, I said, oh, no problem. I appreciate you coming to me, because actually I did. I appreciated the fact that you came to me and you told me. And even that in and of itself told me that you had a healthy respect for me, healthy respect for our relationship, and a healthy respect for the decision that you were about to make. And that was what I tried to convey at that time. Like, oh, bro, I'm cool, because right now, I think you understand what you're doing. It's not like you're doing it from an immature place.
Right. And which it's funny how you said it, you brought up like the rite of passage. Like, it's almost as that seemed like young men treat it as a rite of passage for like, oh, I become this different person. Because in a way, I kind of not saw it as a rite of passage, but as one of like my first adult decisions that I made in that kind of capacity, because I really took the time to decide if I wanted to do it. I was like, I took the time to be like, this is what the positives could be, this is what the negatives could be. Like, it could change the way these type of people see me and this type of thing. And I weighed it out, and I was like, but I wanted it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I made the decision, and I think it was your reception to it and the way you responded to it showed me, because I knew it wasn't necessarily something that you had agreed with before, but it showed me that even if I made a decision that you didn't necessarily agree with, it didn't mean that it was detrimental to our relationship.
Right.
And so I think that's why that moment was big for me at the time. And then fast forward a few years to last weekend, and we had another conversation about it. And
yeah. Okay.
Because I brought up the fact that like I take them out when I'm at work and when I'm interacting with like a certain type of people, because like you get different reactions for it from different people,
right?
And it's like, is that, what reaction am I looking for? What am I trying to do? Is this to my detriment in this moment or not?
Yes.
And making the decisions based off of that. And I think the fact that I actually vetted it and took the time to figure out if I wanted to do it and thought about, okay, like I can wear them here and this is a place where I wouldn't wear them and that type of thing. I took the full time to develop that thought process behind it. And so it became a mature decision.
Right. And that's all I ever want. That's all I ever want. It's amazing because I'm a fan of being versatile, right? And I think because you came to the decision maturely on your own, maturely, is that a word? Maturely on your own, at a place of maturity, you could make decisions that determine if it's the best fit for me at this time, as opposed to someone who did it as a part of a cult following. It along with that almost comes I did it because it's my body. I can do what I want to do with it, and if you don't like it, it's okay because I don't care. And what about you? I mean, you could have that mentality, but understanding that my perception is your reality. You know what I'm saying? Is a bigger thing because people never know what um, detriment they're doing to their future when they make these decisions about themselves. Of course, they have every right to make them, but other people also have every right to make an assumption about them based on the decision that they make. And so, again, I mean, those are the kinds of things that growing up, I always wanted you to know. I always wanted you to process because realizing, at some point you were going to have to bear the consequences for every action, whether it's a good consequence or a bad consequence.
Hmm. And all of that kind of speaks to, I guess, the pipeline that we talk about of being a parent, as far as like it starts off with you being that disciplinary figure,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's supposed to turn into self discipline down the
Yes,
line.
absolutely, absolutely.
And so, even with, I think, with the development of me starting to show more self discipline and discipline myself more, and try to really think out my decisions as far as not just for right now, but how does this play out in the future? I think as I started to look at things that way more, it even allowed that relationship to open up more
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
started to understand, okay, I don't have to necessarily like be right here for him to not do something stupid,
right.
for
Yes,
him to not
absolutely,
think, to make sure he thinks
absolutely.
things through. Because even if he thinks differently from me, he did think it through.
And that's always an important thing. And I even talk about that when I told you, like, you don't have a right not to do what I told you to do. And this is when you stayed under my roof.
Right.
You don't have a right not to do what I told you to do. But what I will give you the ability to do is to show me that you put as much thought into not doing what I told you to do as I put into telling you to do it. Because at that point, now my eyes are open. And I think as a parent, our expectation is that our, our children, our kids don't really process their ambivalence. They don't really process their resistance to what we're telling them to do. They just want to do the anti what we tell them to do. Just buck the system. And so helping you or having you to hear me say and understand that, yeah, I told you to do it and I meant do it. But if you can share with me that you've actually put thought in the why it doesn't make sense. 'Cause as a parent, I don't always know what's right. You know what I'm saying? I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and I'm the no guy, right? So everything I tell you up front is gonna be no. And I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and it's a matter of, okay, man, was that too harsh? Was that the right decision? Which is why I was always no. I mean, I might come back and say yes later. But I'm never gonna say yes up front, and I don't really understand.
Without you ever having the time to think it through fully.
Yeah, because y'all are spring stuff on you, man, and and so, um, but having you to be able to sit down and talk me through it and share with me the reason why you want to do A, B, and C, it really helps me make an informed decision. Because again, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to be hard. I'm not trying to withhold any good thing from you. I take it from the Bible. It's a matter of me just trying to make sure that we're making the right decision for you. You're making the right decision for you, and all the consequences are acceptable consequences. Because I always say, what's the best thing that can happen? What's the worst thing that can happen? And making sure that we're weighing what's the best thing that can happen and what's the worst thing that can happen, and we're willing to if there are bad consequences, we're willing to accept those bad consequences. And it's, I mean, and honestly, it's something that started at the very beginning. I mean, something like your entire childhood, your entire upbringing, your entire from August the 10th, 2000 until now, it wasn't planned, but it was thought about. It was intentional, you know. One thing I knew before you even got here, from the time we first found out your mom's pregnant, was I want to have a great relationship with my son. I'm like, I knew that, you know what I'm saying? I didn't even know what it looked like, you know what I'm saying? But I did know that I wanted to have one. And so I had to figure out how to do that. I can remember, I mean, well, first of all, I didn't let you sleep in my room. And so your mom thought that was the worst thing in the world, right? Like I would not let you sleep in my room at all. I mean, not even when you first came home from the hospital. And I remember even when you started climbing out of the bed and coming in the room, I'd take you right back in your room. But what I would do was I'd lay on the floor with you until you fell asleep and then go back in my room. I wouldn't abandon you, but you wasn't gonna sleep in my room. And so that was intentional. Or I can remember you, I mean, vividly laying up on the changing table. And I come in, I'm like, who's your daddy? Who's your daddy? I say that to you all the time. And the other thing I always say is, I'm gonna make you famous. You remember that? I mean, and so just the words that I spoke to you were intentional, you know? I wanted you to know who's your dad. Because I mean, there's a lot of people that, really don't know who their dad is, you know? I wanted you to know that. I didn't want there to be any doubt that I was there and I was there for you. And it ain't always been easy. I mean, there have been times like, man, look, I just want to throw up my hand. And then it's not that you were a bad kid. Oh my God. Like if you compare me to you, it wouldn't be no comparison. And we were just having a conversation the other day about that. And it was like, I guess for the most part, you got a lot from me innately. You know what I'm saying? A lot of what I did, you didn't see. Because by the time you came along, I was mature enough to have all that out of my system. But you just got a lot of it in your genes. And so I was just afraid, I guess I can say, that if you knew some of the stuff that I did, that it'd give you a license to do it too. And so just being intentional even about that, and, who I allow you around. I mean, like I allow you around some people I grew up with, or, but it's those people I know will be respectful. And even when they tell you my dirt, they're going to tell you in such a way that there's a lesson behind it. They're not going to glorify it so that you can turn around and try to glorify it too. And so, all of those things I think lend to, and putting you around the right friends, or the right ones, of the guys I grew up with, that I had relationship with. I think all that was a part of me still trying to grow you, not necessarily as a son, but to grow you to a place that you'll see the type of man that I associate myself with. And so when you become a man, I want to be the kind of man that you associate yourself with. You see what I'm saying? So that relationship out of my house is still cool. Yeah.
Well, so far it's work.
Yeah, so far it's work. Except for now. Yeah, you are back home. Yeah. But go ahead. Oh, I just need to get back to the boys trips. I said something about them boys trips the other day. Because that was, I mean, that was just, I mean, that was ultimate bonding time for us. Those boys trips. And it's funny because they happen so much when you were in the house, and they happen even when you went off to college. And now I think it's even more important because I don't get to see you often anymore.
That's true.
Yeah. I appreciate the times that we talk. And I mean, when we talk, I mean, we do talk. Like even when we get ready to do these podcasts, it's like,
Yeah, we end up just catching up for like, 30 minutes, an hour before we start recording a lot of times.
yeah. And so, I mean, I want you to know, I value those times. I really do value those times. And that's why I might try not to bother you too much. I'll send you a text every morning or whatever, but I try not to invade your life. But I want you to know that I'm there, that I'm your number one fan. I always told you that I'm your number one fan. I'm there for you. But I want to give you space. But I do want to get back to a point where we start doing boys trips, because I mean it's a real ultimate catch up time for us. And so I mean, I know, but life's different now. You know what I'm saying? Life's different. We got to figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I just think that's important.
Sure, we on the way.
Yeah.
Cause, moving to a place where we have the availability to do that type of thing now, and travel starting to open up more a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we have gone through a lot of different phases.
Yes. And again, even even at his worst, which wasn't horrible, but even at his worst,
Sound like it was worse on your side than on my side.
Well,
I was chilling.
Yeah, of course you were chilling because you were the resistance. But just trying to even figure out, I mean, like, because I mean, your biggest thing was discipline, not as far as being disobedient, but discipline as far as like, let me be about my business. You know what I'm saying? Let me be about my business. Let me be about my schoolwork. Let me be about mine. I mean, you like you used to kill me with school, man. Like you never did bad in school as a final analysis, but you were the master procrastinator. And that was one of the things that you got from me that you never saw in me. And it used to irk me so badly because like you literally have a D or an F like 6 weeks out. And then you just crunch time and come out with an A. And that was frustrating for me because I knew what the end would be like. Because I know
Because
that
it didn't teach the lesson back then.
yes. And that's why I used to try to have those hard conversations with your teachers. Like, don't do that. Like, don't set my son up for failure like that. Like, consider who he is, you know. And they, oh no, it'll be fine. I'm like, no, you don't know my son. You know what I'm saying? And so those are the kind of things that I say were rough times. There was never like a real disobedience or anything like that. I mean, you always been respectful, and I appreciate that. Never really gave us any like sneaking out. The worst thing was you wouldn't even go nowhere. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So it wasn't never like you sneaking out or sneaking nobody in. None of that kind of stuff. It was just like, man, know your work, dude. Like, come on, for real. But if that's the worst thing I had to contend with as a parent,
If there was
man,
ever a problem, I was chilling too much.
yeah, that's your problem. You was chilling too much. So I'm good, man. I just appreciate our relationship so much. I appreciate the start of the relationship, even though you was late start. I mean, that's why I said August the 10th and not August the 11th. Um, but and I appreciate you still allowing me in your life. I mean, even now, oh my God, man, I can go down this rabbit hole for real. Like I'm sitting back thinking about when you start talking about being intentional, like coming to school. I used to come to school once or twice a week to go to eat lunch with
In
you
middle
in middle
school, I
school. You know
remember
what I'm
that.
saying? And just
I remember you pull up with the Chick-fil-A platter that one time.
oh my God, man! Like everybody inundated me with that Chick-fil-A platter. I think you might have gained a few friends with that Chick-fil-A platter.
Mm.
But it was not even. I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I even think your classmates, they didn't mind me being there. You know what I'm saying? And so it's never like I wasn't even trying to be the cool dad. You know what I'm saying? I was just there. I was just there. I was there. I was attentive. You know, I spoke to everybody. I asked questions, but I wasn't trying to be cool with them. I was being who I was.
I was gonna say it was honestly just consistent.
Yeah, yeah. And so even down to like Ricardo, man, like I used to get on Ricardo all the time about not wearing a belt. And that brother now, he calls, you know what I'm saying? Just called yesterday for Thanksgiving. All the way from middle school, just being consistent. And so I'm just glad that again, I'm glad you're my son.
Thank you. I have no choice in the matter, but
you had no choice, bro. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad coming through the cut. Like it wasn't bad. And I'm so glad that even on the other side, even in college, man, we had our rough moments. But I contend, I always try to give you that guidance, and it wasn't even like, okay, you need to do this. But it was like, bro, what's the consequence of that? You know what I'm saying? What's the consequence of that? And we made it through, and I still say COVID was a blessing. I mean, even though I know it was a curse to many, but it gave us an opportunity to reconnect. It gave us an opportunity to create this podcast. It gave us an opportunity to develop a platform where we could share our ideas more broadly. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not like
and really just have more conversations.
Yeah, have more conversations. You know, it ain't aimed at you. It ain't aimed at me. It was just having general conversations in a respectful manner and grow together.
Honestly, the podcast was probably the start of a shift in relationship too.
Yeah.
Because we started this like a few weeks after I had gotten home.
Yeah.
And so that got us like back talking like for long periods of time again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, it's been good, man. It's good. And so like, I mean, for anybody listening, like for real, that's my dude. You know what I'm saying? That's my dude. And so, yeah, that's my son. Clarence T. Brown III. Yeah, and so we
All the clearances was outside fishing today.
all the Clarence was out there side fishing today. My dad was over and all of us caught fish. So it's kind of cool. It was kind of cool. And so just having that legacy, I think is important. We're not ready for a fourth. Just to put that out there in the atmosphere. So if y'all wondering, we ain't there yet.
You ain't got one. I ain't trying to do all that.
We just still trying to enjoy where we are right now. Enjoy the moment. You know what I'm saying?
I'm still in the parenting myself phase.
Okay.
That transition.
Yeah, had that conversation with me before you get ready, like the earrings, man. So yeah,
yeah.
So yeah, but that's it, man. I just want explore the conversation. You know what I'm saying? Talk about it because I do value it. You know what I'm saying? I value it, and I want you to know I value it. Want to share, with other people. Like it's cool to have a cool relationship with your son. You know what I'm saying? I mean, shoot, when I bounce stuff off of you sometimes, you know what I'm saying? To see what you think about it. You get on my nerves sometimes now. Cause you cut to the quick. You don't placate, you don't play around.
You didn't?
No, I didn't. You're right. You got it honest. So I mean, to be able to have you as a son and as a sounding board, I think is great.
Great.
Yeah.
Be a part of
it. Yeah. So that's cool, man. That's cool. And I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of what you're doing. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I ain't expect compliments today. I don't get them often.
No, I wasn't planning on giving them, bro. I wasn't planning on giving them, but I had to throw it out there.
All right.
Cool again.
Well, thank you for Thanksgiving.
Thank you for Thanksgiving. There it is. Anything else?
Well, you gave a great big summary, summing up and all that. Yeah. Honestly, everything that you said, our relationship has gone through a lot of different phases. I feel like we've kind of this new phase, even with like me just coming home now, and the new phases of me with the work and just stuff that I've seen you doing, and I've got to see you do as I was coming up, and now it's starting to be like I've reached this point in my life, like okay, now I'm kind of doing this adulting thing, like oh. So this is kind of what I like looking at it look different from being here and feeling it, and so it's cool to kind of have that. It allows me to gain, I guess, new understanding about you as well, especially since you talked about like we have like some of those similarities that even if it was stuff I saw, it's like it came to me anyway as being your son, and so being able to have kind of the memory of what I saw and then being able to relate it to now what I go through and now what I do is a cool connection of bringing it kind of full circle to give me more understanding. Even with how I was talking about like the parenting myself thing is like being in a position where now like I have to parent myself in things and hold myself accountable for things even gives me insight into like how you had to parent me before and things you're saying like, okay, no, he wasn't crazy. No, he wasn't just saying stuff like, nah, that makes sense. And that's something that I still should be acting on and having played out in my life. And so I think what you always used to say, like, even if you don't understand now, you might understand later, which is that cliche thing that you often get from parents, but I've found it to be true. And so I think just stuff like that and me growing and me developing and me changing has allowed me to gain new respect, not just for you, even just having the relationship to begin with. Because like having the relationship is what has allowed me to be able to grow,
Do that.
to be able to develop this this sense of self image and this self discipline and all those type of things because I was able to watch that and see that. And so thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. I'm glad it didn't go unnoticed. Yeah. Yeah, I think being transparent has helped. And being transparent, as a parent, be transparent. Let your child see it. Like if you struggling financially, let your child see it. But when they struggling financially, they'll know this ain't nothing different than what my parents went through and they made it through. I can do it too. You know what I'm saying? I think that's key. Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, Bone Podcast.
Bone Podcast.
Between you and me.
Between you and me. Holla.
Holla.